You've probably heard the benchmarks. Save 3 times your salary by 40, 6 times by 50. Most Canadians don't hit those targets. But then something surprising happens in their 50s. And if you understand this one thing, you finally stop feeling behind. I'm Toyin, a CPA and financial planner here in Canada. I'm glad you're here. In this video, I'm going to show you where most Canadians really stand and how to bridge the gap most people think is impossible. Fidelity Investments recommends this savings benchmarks based on salary multiples. At age 40, the recommendation is 3 times your annual salary. So if you're earning $60,000 a year, that's $180 saved. If you're earning $100,000 a year, that's $300,000 saved. By age 45, it jumps to 4 times your salary. At $60,000 income, you're looking at $240,000. At $100,000 income, you're at $400,000 savings. And by age 50, the benchmark says you should have 6 times your annual salary. $60,000 salary is $360,000 saved. $100,000 is $600,000 saved. These benchmarks assume you started saving at 25, saved about 15% of your income consistently, invested more than half in the stock market, and plan to retire at 67. That's the math they're based on. Now let's see what's actually happening. The data on what Canadians are actually saving at each age shows a considerable gap. At age 40, according to Statistics Canada data, the median Canadian at 40 has about $81,500 in total savings. The benchmark says $180,000 to $360,000. That's a significant gap. At ages 45 to 54, Statistics Canada shows the median RRSP balance is $70,000. The average is $150,000, but that's skewed by a few people with very large RRSPs. When you add TFSA balances, the average total retirement savings for this age group sits around $183,000. The benchmark was $240,000 to $400,000. By ages 55 to 64, here's what's interesting. Statistics Canada's data shows the average total retirement savings jumps to $833,000. That's a huge jump from the $183,000 average at 45 to 54. Why? Because your 50s are your peak earning years. People in this decade make intentional choices about where their money goes. They prioritize savings, they get serious about investing, and those choices compound. So yes, most Canadians are behind the benchmarks, but that gap tells you something important. The benchmarks might not actually match real life. This is data from Statistics Canada going back several years, and the pattern is consistent. People catch up in their peak earning years because they make different choices about their money. Here's why I don't want you to stress about hitting a specific benchmark number. These benchmarks assume everyone's situation is the same. They assume you started saving at the same age, 25. They assume you want to retire at the same age, 67. They assume you want to live the same lifestyle in retirement that you're living now. But none of that is necessarily true. Some of you want to retire at 60. Some of you want to retire at 70. Some of you want to spend more in retirement, and some want to spend less. The benchmark doesn't know any of this. It's a generic number designed to fit a generic person. And real retirement planning isn't generic, it's personal. That's why I want you to stop thinking about hitting the benchmark and start thinking about figuring out your actual number. Now, figuring out what you actually need in retirement, that's a deeper conversation. How much do you need to spend? What will CPP and OAS cover? What role does your home play? I made a whole video of this. How to calculate how much you really need to save for retirement. I'll link that in the description. Go through that calculation and you'll have your actual target. Not the benchmark, but your number. Now here's where investing becomes critical. Because the gap between where you are and where you need to be doesn't have to come entirely from your paycheck. It can come from growth. Let me show you the math. Say you're 45 years old and you have $70,000 saved. You need to reach $600,000 by age 65. That's a 15-year window. That's a gap of $530,000. If you just saved money without investing, keeping it in a savings account earning 2%, you'd need to save almost $35,000 a year to reach that target. That's a lot of money. But if you invest that $70,000 and add $20,000 a year and earn 5% annually from a diversified portfolio, you'd reach about $480,000 by age 65. That's much closer to your goal. And it required less total savings because the market did some of the heavy lifting. If you earn 6% annually instead of 5%, you hit $530,000. That extra 1% doesn't sound like much, but over 15 years on a growing portfolio, it's the difference between almost getting there and actually getting there. This is why investing matters. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about letting time and compound returns do the heavy lifting so you don't have to save every single dollar yourself. The difference between earning 2% and 5 to 6% on your money is the difference between retirement being possible and retirement requiring a very different lifestyle. That's why investment strategy matters, especially when you're playing catch up in your 40s and 50s. So here's how to work towards your actual number, not someone else's benchmark. Step 1, know your target. Use a retirement calculator to figure out what you actually need, not what the benchmark says, what you need based on your income, your lifestyle, and your timeline. Step 2, make the math work. Look at your annual savings, your current investments, and what return you're realistically targeting. That tells you if you're on track or if you need to adjust. Step 3, use your peak earning years. If you're in your 40s or 50s, this is your advantage. Direct raises, bonuses, and tax refunds to your retirement savings. Check your IRSP contribution room on your CRA notice of assessment. You probably have more room than you think. And here's the data. According to Fidelity Canada's 2025 retirement report, 90% of people with a written financial plan feel prepared for retirement compared to just 55% without one. The plan matters more than hitting a specific benchmark number. When you know your target and your strategy, that's when things change. The benchmark might say you should have $600,000 by age 50, but maybe you need $500,000. Maybe you have a pension that covers part of your retirement. Maybe your home is paid off. Maybe you plan to work a few years longer. Your actual number might be completely different from the benchmark, and that's okay. The point of this video isn't to make you feel behind. It is to show you that the benchmark is just a starting point. Your actual retirement readiness depends on your situation, your timeline, and your goals. Figure out your number, build your plan around that number, and let investment growth do some of the heavy lifting. If you want to calculate your actual target, watch my video on calculating how much you need for retirement. You're probably not as behind as the benchmarks suggest. You just need to know your actual target. I'll see you in the next video.